Okay, I am joined by senior writer for Hero Sports, Sam Herder. Give him a follow on Twitter at Sam Herder. Sam, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, I sincerely appreciate this because I love college football in all of its forms, and the lower divisions you get a different kind of culture altogether, and you have the one that everybody knows with North Dakota State and James Madison, and you have the ones that people don't like, say Duquesne, right? And I'm an HBCU fanboy, so all of my HBCU schools play FCS football. But I wanted to talk with you because with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 going to conference-only slates, it's really going to hurt FCS programs. And so what first have you heard from some of those athletic directors and assistant ADs who helped put together these games where a lot of their budget is caught up in these one or two or three games?
Yeah, there's some definite worry going on just because I mean these FCS programs they are you know they don't like when you call them small schools, but they are small schools compared to the FBS big boys. When you look at just the size of the fan base and the size of the stadium and facilities, but especially the size of the athletic budgets, and whereas FBS teams they have an athletic budget of 50, 60, 70 million dollars, sometimes even more. If you have an athletic budget of 20 plus million dollars in the FCS, you're doing well. But most of these programs, athletic departments, they have an athletic budget between 10 to 20 million dollars. So when you're just grabbing one off the list, when you're Southern Illinois and you're playing at Wisconsin, and all of a sudden you're not going to make that $500,000 anymore, that's a lot of money for their football budget and their athletic department. And that's not something where they can just, it's not like they're Ohio State and they can just turn somewhere else and find that $500,000 no problem. So there is worry about how they're going to make up that money. A lot of these FCS teams, they schedule these FBS opponents not only for the experience for the fans and the players and the coaches, but the number one thing is to get some money to operate. And you look at a team like Portland State, the Big Sky, they're like a lot of FCS teams where they schedule two FBS opponents, and they're basically saying, I mean, more than likely these are going to be two losses, but we're going to make $1 million off of these two games, and we need that to cover our travel expenses and stuff like that. And with that money not being there, there is that worry of, I mean, how in the world are we going to make up this money?
Yeah, so last year, that game for Oklahoma, where I'm from, and that's the team here, was South Dakota, and they're supposed to play Iowa State this year, which is still, again, we're counting on it as of today when we're talking, but that's a tremendous amount of money, even as Iowa State, to put a number on it, has an operating cost of about $86 million for its athletic department this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what, just listen to you, between 8 and 4 times as much as some of these FCS programs.
Yeah.
And one of those teams this year is Missouri State, which plays in a tremendously tough conference. That Missouri Valley Conference is just ridiculous. But there's been some conversation about how that game gets played because they're looking at $600,000 that they make from this. And according to herosports.com, where I'm getting this information, you should all go check it out, North Dakota State was only getting about $50,000 more to go play Oregon. So it's not a small amount of money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big chunk of change for these FCS programs, and I know a lot of people ask, what's the point even of Power Five scheduling FCS opponents, and it is a financial thing where it is cheaper for Oklahoma to schedule an FCS team, which is still Division I and still counts, toward you being bowl eligible and stuff like that. It's cheaper to schedule a Missouri State rather than a Group of Five team, because you can maybe pay Missouri State, whatever it is, $500,000. Meanwhile, if you try to schedule a Group of Five opponent, they might be looking for a $1.2 million payout or stuff like that. So that's a big reason why Power Five schedules the FCS. It's quote unquote, it's cheaper to pay these FCS opponents. But I mean, while $500,000 might not seem like a lot of money for Oklahoma, that's for a lot of FCS teams. That's that money is essential for them to cover their costs of playing a football season.
I'm thinking about this from the standpoint of an FCS school and what it might mean for the Football Oversight Committee to allow FBS teams to count not one but two wins against FCS opponents this year toward bowl eligibility. And then we had this move by the Big Ten and the Pac-12. What's the feeling among FCS teams? Do you think that we're going to see cancellation of seasons, say in the Big Sky or in the Missouri Valley Conference?
I think the last resort, the last resort would be to cancel the entire 2020-2021 football season in this academic year. But the last I heard, the last resort still is to play a spring football season. The FCS is going to do everything in their power to play in the fall. It might be something where, FCS teams also go regional a little bit. It might not be, a conference only schedule, but it might be something where, some teams from the Big Sky and some teams from the Missouri Valley, if they're somewhat close to each other regional wise, they might play. Same with, there might be a SoCon team that's relatively close to an OVC or a Southland team, and maybe they get something on the schedule. So, everything I hear is the FCS is still eyeing having a football season this fall outside of the Ivy League and the Patriot League. Those are two conferences that push the season back to the spring, but they're kind of on the smaller end when it comes to FCS conferences. But the main ones like the CAA, the Valley, and the Big Sky, they still are eyeing this fall to find a way to play. And if that doesn't happen, then they'll push things back to the spring, and hopefully this country is in a bit of a better shape than what it is now to safely play football.
I would be remiss if I did not ask you about your impressions of Trey Lance and what this season might do to his draft stock, knowing that the one opportunity he was going to have for certain to show off in front of what I thought was going to be a nationally televised audience has been taken off the table in Oregon. But the room is NFL scouts really loved him. One on record, Daniel Jeremiah, has thought the world of him, and going into this season, he had a higher grade on Trey Lance than he had Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. Just didn't see him make any mistakes and didn't see him check down the ball. He was really accurate and was dynamic as a runner. I've only seen him the once, man. I saw him in the national championship game, right? And what I saw I liked, but it was also it was a weird game, right? What are your impressions of Trey Lance?
Yeah, he's the real deal. There's no doubt about that. That national championship game, if that is the only one you watch of Trey Lance, you might not see the hype like these other guys have, right. like these other guys do, just because Trey was asked to carry the ball 20 times or however much it was a game. And I think he only passed the ball 12 or 13 times and completed 7 or 8 of them. So you look at 8 of 13 passing for 100 and some yards. Nothing special there, but he did, carry the ball quite a bit and did his damage with his legs. And that was kind of the game plan with that game. But if you just look at his body of work throughout the season, you can see the arm talents when he does use it. He's a great athlete. He can scramble and run, great size, kind of a thick lower body. So he's a durable guy as well. And, right now I live in the Minneapolis area, but I know North Dakota State pretty well. I lived in Fargo from about 2011 to 2014, and I lived there again in 2016 and 2017. So, I've seen Easton Stick play in person quite a bit. I've seen Carson Wentz play in person. He was at North Dakota State. And, Trey Lance I wouldn't say he has the raw abilities of a Carson Wentz, but Trey Lance is already ahead of where Easton Stick is at, where Easton Stick was at as a senior. And Easton Stick was drafted in the 5th round,
right,
I believe.
Right, to the Chargers.
Yep, to the Chargers. And Easton Stick is already, kind of past where he was at as a senior. And obviously Lance is only going to be a redshirt sophomore. So, he has all the tools that you need. I'd be lying if I said that, Trey Lance is going to be in the discussion to be a first round pick in 2021. I kind of viewed it as, all right, by the time Lance is a junior or senior, he's going to start getting, some pretty heavy NFL hype. But that's already started after his redshirt freshman year. Yeah, he's good, man. He's a legit NFL first round draft pick prospect.